Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Keegan, and welcome back to the channel, and welcome back to another episode of the Supercoach Diaries for 2020. As you can see, no face this week. I've got a lot of notes in front of me, and you don't want to see me looking up and down, reading notes. So I figured we'll off the camera for this week, and we'll talk about the players that you can see on the screen right in front of you right now, which is good. So a couple of episodes ago, I looked at the promising defenders for the upcoming year. This week, I'm looking at the midfielders you should be looking at. So as you can see in front of you, there are 11 midfielders. Gee, didn't even really count that until that point. There are 11 midfielders I've picked here. And I've written a few little notes down on all of them as well. You're going to look at them. Some of them you're going to not laugh, but some of them you're going to be questioning. Some you might be happy with. Some you might be bemused by. However you feel, let me go through and talk through some of the choices that I have made with my midfielders and let you know why I think they should be worthy of your consideration or thinking or even your thought process heading into the new season. As always, before I get underway, make sure you like this video and subscribe so you don't miss any of the Supercoach videos on this channel. Without any further ado, let's get underway looking at the first player, Jack Macrae. He is an absolute gun, and I think if we look at the midfielders over here, he's actually the most expensive midfielder available to you this year, slightly in front of Lachie Neale, who's about 10k less. What can you say about Jack Macrae? I personally think he's the best midfielder in the Bulldogs. He's probably not as impactful as a Bontempelli, but I think just the sheer amount of ball he gets, he very rarely wastes it. I think he's definitely worth the price this year. He averaged 123 last season, which is an absolutely massive effort for any player, really. He averaged the most by a couple of points. The next closest was Lachie Neale, and I don't think you could go wrong picking him. He's pretty much locked in to my first round team, unless of course injury hits. But I've had him over the past couple of years, Macrae, and he's never let me down. So I'm going to stick with him this year. I think he's definitely worth looking at. As far as sort of scores last year goes, as I said, he averaged 123. His lowest score was actually 84, which is pretty good. If your floor is 84, look, you don't want them to be getting 84 every week, but if that's as low as they're going to get, then I think that's a pretty good effort, and I think he's definitely someone I'm interested in, someone I'm locking into my team for this year. Another person I'm probably going to be locking in this year is Patrick Cripps. Now, he's a bit cheaper at 635,000. He averaged 117 this year. It was a breakout year for him last year. He really he'd shown a bunch before, but last year was the year that he stood up to that next level, and he started picking up that Carlton midfield and putting him on his shoulders and carrying them forward. This year, he should have a better team around him. The young players should improve. Samuel should improve. There'll be a bunch of other midfielders should improve around him. So hopefully that means that he's going to get a bit of help in the midfield. Now, that could go two ways. One way, it could help him exceed his points value, but another way is less ball could go through him, meaning he could get less touches and less scoring. But I actually think he's going to improve himself as well, and I think he's going to go to that absolute top superstar level if he's not already there. He definitely is consistent. 117 average, which is pretty good. He missed 2 games I think they were both through injury as well. I think it was a Carlton played a game in Fremantle, definitely, against Fremantle over in WA, and they won without him, which was a massive effort by them. But Carlton are capable without him, but I think he's such an important piece to them that they're going to try and get it. He'll play every single game if fit without fail. If he can stay injury-free, if he can put the 22 games together, I reckon he'll definitely be close to a lock in people's Supercoach teams heading into the new season. Now we step down to Tom Mitchell. Now, here's probably the first one that might not be a lot for everyone's team. I honestly think, and correct me down below if you're not doing it, that Macrae and Cripps are going to be in most teams this season. Mitchell's an interesting one. He's coming back from a broken leg. He does have a potential to score big. and to score above what his price suggests. So at the moment, he's priced at 630,000. But I think he definitely can score higher than that suggests. He obviously broken leg, definitely question marks over his fitness. Can he have the same impact? Luckily for him and the role he plays, he's not really an outside runner. So a broken leg, while it definitely will have his issues and definitely will have an effect on him, it isn't the death knell it would be for someone that's a bit more outside. So I think he can get close to the form he showed a couple of years ago in 2018. Whether he can hit those heights again, who knows? The broken leg might stop him from getting to contest, but we wait and see. Hopefully, his sake and Hawthorn's sake, he hits that top form, and hopefully, for my sake, he hits top form, because I think he might be the third midfielder in this selection that I'm probably putting in my team. He'll come back, he'll get a lot of the ball. Now, I think he's Hawthorn's best player in their team by an absolute mile. There's no doubting that. Brownlow medalist. I think he doesn't get a lot of help in the midfield. Jaeger O'Meara, who did a decent job last year. Him and Warple are probably the two that are going to have to step up to help Mitchell. How will their dynamic change with Mitchell back in the team? What happens to a Warple who was basically the Mitchell replacement last year, and O'Meara? Who knows? Sort of just as a side note, O'Meara might be an interesting thought, because the tagger, who if they're coming up against Hawthorn, the tagger might go from O'Meara to Mitchell for this season, whereas last season they probably sat on O'Meara. So O'Meara not in this list, but interesting to think about what he might be. I don't know what he's worth in game, but he could be interesting thought anyway, and maybe Warple the same. But we hope Mitchell hits his best. He averaged 129 in 2018, which is absolutely ridiculous. So I think if he hits that level, I definitely someone you should be considering for your team. Probably a wait and see to see if he's fit and see the reports around him heading into round one. All right, so we've moved from our super duper premiums above 600k. Now we're into our not mid prices really, because 500,000 is still not a mid pricer, but our cheaper premiums and heading into mid prices. So my first cheaper premium is Hugh McCluggage. Now he will play on the wing. He played on the wing last year for the Lions. He's going to play on the wing this year for the Lions. And he's going to be that connection between back and forward. He will just run up and back down the wing. He is going to he's going to have the skills. He's not going to have a lot of inconsistent disposal. He's going to definitely hit his targets. And he's also still young, and he does have room to grow. He's only 20, I want to say 21 or 22. Might even be younger than that. But I think that another year in the system, another solid build around him, I think that he can step up to that next level and become close to an elite ball user, outside runner for the Lions. And if you pick him, you hope he does that. Brisbane also have the potential to improve. Young team, so they will all improve together, which might mean Hugh McCluggage gets better with a better team around him as well, meaning a lot more points for him. Now, the thing you need to take in consideration is he only averaged 94 last season. So there is room to definitely improve. If you could average around 105 is probably what you want, 105, 110. Whether he can make that jump is a question mark. Again, he's probably not someone that I'm going to consider for my team straight away, or he might fit in, he might be a last pick, but I think there is enough there to give him definitely a bit of consideration, and definitely he could save you a bit of money if you were to pick him, and you can put that money into maybe another top premium midfielder, or move it to the ruck or somewhere else around the field. It gives you a bit of flexibility picking him, but again, you're wanting to hope that he improves on that 94 average and pushes that up past 100. So, moving down, we're now down to 457,000 for Brad Hill. He is St Kilda's big recruit. He's the headliner for St Kilda's recruiting over the off-season. They brought in a lot of players. Brad Hill is probably the top player that they brought in from Fremantle, wanting to come back to Melbourne. I think at St Kilda he could see a bit more emphasis placed on him. He's their big star signing, so I can see a lot of the play being funneled through Brad Hill, which means he should get more of the ball, which means hopefully we see his score increase. He averaged, let's quickly check how much Hill averaged. He averaged, 84 last year. All right. So he didn't actually have an awful year. For 457, he's a risk. He's definitely a risk, and it's definitely not a sure thing that he's going to score any higher. But he's someone that you definitely, I think, need to at least think about. Looking at his scores, he had some really inconsistent scores. He had games where he'd smash 120, then he had games it'd be down by 55 at 60. So for me personally, his range is probably too wide, but he might be someone to keep an eye on early in the year and see what sort of scores he starts churning out. He might be a one you might want to jump on if there's maybe an early injury, or one of your or you've got a bit of spare money on the side, you can make a really early upgrade. He might be one that if he shows in the first couple of rounds that he's definitely getting a more consistent game about him, that you might be someone you consider. But again, he's not a premium. I'm probably not going to be picking him first up, but one I would keep an eye on. Now, the next one's interesting. Last year, Cochin played more of a supportive role in the midfield. He allowed the likes of Prestia and the likes of Martin to play their more natural games, and Cochin was almost the glue that held that midfield together, meaning the ball didn't go through him a lot. So, and that's not what you want in Supercoach, pretty much. You want players to be getting the ball, doing a lot with the ball, kicking goals as well can be very helpful. So his role was very supportive last year. He's a wait and see. See what role he is this year. If he goes back to being that ball winner that he was a few seasons ago, at 429,000, he might be worth a bit of a shout. Now, this is going back a fair while, but he averaged 116 points in 2012. Now, that's 8 years ago, so it's a massive callback. But if he was to, just in Dreamland, if he was to average that again, and you knew he was going to average that again, you'd pick him every single time, because he'd make you money to start with, and he'd be probably up there with the premiums for the season. But he's definitely an unknown quantity. He's definitely would need a career renaissance to hit those 116 point averages this season. I don't think it's going to happen, but at 429,000, he's hard to ignore. He's someone that you could maybe have a look at, have a think about. Again, I don't think I'm going to pick him, but who knows? He also only played 11 games last year. He had a lot of injury, so he needed to also be injury fit. There's probably too many question marks there to consider, but at 429,000, I thought he was at least worth a mention, just as someone to keep an eye on. At the very least, someone to maybe keep your options open. Who knows? Bit of a wild card there. Now we move down to probably more definite mid prices, and the first one I have is Ollie Florent. He has the potential for a breakout. Yeah, he started the year last year pretty slowly, but then he started moving towards the end of the season. In the last 4 games of the season, he actually scored over 100 twice. So if he was to bring that sort of form heading into this season, he might be someone you maybe look at a mid-price player to have a breakout season in the midfield. He's going to get more, as the season gets on for Sydney, he's probably going to get more time in the midfield as they move away from their tried and tested midfielders that they've got there, and probably start blooding some of the younger players. Ollie Florent could be one you might want to look at. So there is real room to grow there. His highest score last year was 127, meaning he does definitely have that potential to score big for you. But whether he can do that for the season consistently enough to warrant a pick as a mid-pricer, you don't know. Usually in mid-prices, you want to be a bit more of a sure bet that there's someone coming back from injury and you know they're going to smash it. So Ollie Florent would be a risk, but for mid-prices, not a lot of mid-prices in the midfield this year, so I did struggle a bit sitting down trying to find mid-prices worth talking about. But Ollie Florent's definitely one I think is worth at least mentioning. Mentioning he had some good scores towards the end of the season. He scored 127 in a single game last season as well, showing that he can score big. So he might be one that could have a breakout year, and you might want to be on the ground floor with Florent heading into 2020. All right, now we're moving sort of more towards the rookies. And the first one I have is Matt Rowell. Pretty straightforward. He'll play 22 games for the Suns this season. If you watched my Gold Coast Suns video a week or so ago, you know that I talked about him pretty much, that he's going to play 22 games if fit. He's being talked about as a Sam Walsh clone, and we know Sam Walsh was an absolute lock for everyone's team last year. So this year, I think Rowell is going to be similar, and I think that he's definitely worth putting in your team. I would lock him in your team. He's going to make you money. He's going to get 22 games if fit. Pretty straightforward. Don't need to say much more. Definitely put him in your team. The next one is a bit of an interesting one, is Green. He was really highly rated in the draft last year. He only went at I think it was 8 or 9 he went. And the only reason he went there was because people knew he was tied to the GWS Academy. So because of that, he's actually slid down the draft order a fair way. But from all reports, he was up there with Rowell and Anderson, Gold Coast's 1 and 2 picks, as being the next best player. So he's one to keep an eye on. If he starts for GWS this season, I'll definitely be putting him in my team. I think he showed a lot. He's a big body, big inside midfielder. He'll get the ball. He'll do enough to raise his price. Whether he'll be there at the end of the season, probably not. But I think if he was to play games for GWS at the start of the season, I think at 166,000, he's definitely worth the pick, and he's definitely someone I'd be looking to bring in my team if he looks like he's going to be playing round 1. Into the final 2. This one isn't really a surprise, and I think most people have him in is Marlon Pickett. He first game in an AFL Grand Final. There's not too many players I think of that have done that, and he ripped it to shreds. He looked pretty great out there. A few blind turns, a few tricks, and he at times he looked like he'd be a seasoned vet playing AFL for 10 years. So I think that he's one that I'm definitely going to be picking at 123,000. And now he's even got a full preseason under his belt. So I think he's definitely worth putting into your team. I'm putting him straight into my team without any question. And he's definitely going to be at least on my bench, if not filling in at my number 8 position in the midfield. And the last one, that is a bit more of, not a surprise, but a bit more of a shot in the dark, is Robertson from Lions. He was picked up this year. He had a highly rated junior, but he actually slid to the mid-20s, and that was on the back of some questionable disposal. Now, that doesn't mean... Now, Supercoach is all about effective disposal and hitting your targets and not wasting kicks and wasting possessions. So it could come back to burn him a bit there, but at 117,000, I don't think we really care if he was to be picked for the Brisbane Lions, and that is a big if because they have an absolutely star-studded young midfield. If he was to be picked for the Brisbane Lions, he'd get his hands on the ball enough and probably do enough with it that at 117,000, he's definitely worth the option. He has a point to prove, and from all reports from the Lions, he's been training really, really well. So he could be in that position or around that position to be in the Brisbane Lions team come round 1. So if he is named for round 1, and that is a big if, but if he's named for round 1, I'd definitely be jumping on him for 2020. Well, guys, that brings me to the end of this video, talking about some of the midfielders that I find interesting, whether they're locks like McRae or Cripps, or whether they're a roughie like McCluggage, or whether they're just a big question mark like Cochin. There's a wide range of midfielders there that I've talked about, and I've tried to keep this video a bit short. I didn't want to prattle on too much, but there's some midfielders that you should at least consider. They're not locks. They're not people that are going to be people that everyone's going to have in their team outside of maybe McRae, Cripps, and Mitchell. But I think that they're worth, especially some of the ones that are a bit more questionable. Like, I think McCluggage is one that I definitely would consider at a slower price, hoping he improves. But there's a wide range of players there. Let me know in the comments below what's your midfielder looking like? Who are your point of difference midfielders that you're looking for this year? And who do you think's your secret tech? Who's your player that you know is going to blow up this year and going to rip it to shreds that no one knows about? Let us know in the comments below. I'm always happy for some tips. Always willing to take any help I can get. Well, guys, thank you for watching. The next episode will to hopefully get up next week. I'm probably going to be focusing on rucks and forwards. And then once that video comes out, it's actually pre-season starting. And then I'm going to start doing videos after every round of preseason, talking about players that played well, players you need to watch, and all that sort of stuff. So do keep an eye out for that on this channel as we rush towards round one. I think it's something like 42 days or something to round one. It's crazy how quick that's come up, and I can't wait. And probably you can't wait either to get underway for Supercoach for the new year. So thank you for watching, guys. I hope you've enjoyed, and I'll see you later.